Hello everyone and welcome to the Fork Drawer. I'll be your host, the _Fork 2002, and what you're seeing on screen here is gameplay from Fallout 4 on the PS4. What I want to talk to you about is the PlayStation Neo. If you haven't heard of that, maybe you've heard of the PlayStation 4.5 or the PlayStation 4K. Basically, it's been rumored for a while that Sony's been working on an upgrade to the PS4 that, like the nickname suggests, PS4.5, PS4K, wouldn't be a software upgrade, but a hardware upgrade with actual new parts and a new console that could play games in 4K resolution. Well, last week that rumor's been all but confirmed by GiantBomb.com to be an actual thing that Sony's working on named PlayStation Neo. They have the specs for it, and I'll put them up here on screen. It's supposed to come out at the end of this year in the fall and cost around $399. If you want to know more about the specs, you can check out the article. I'll put the link in the description below, and they'll go a little bit more in depth in what the console is. But just looking at the specs here, it doesn't really, you can see that they have an upgraded processor, an upgraded graphics card, and upgraded memory. But it doesn't look like this upgraded stuff should be able to output at 4K. Gaming PCs that cost 3 times this much with better specs can sometimes still struggle outputting 4K resolution on some games. So I don't really see how a console that costs $400 with these specs would be able to do it. But this hasn't been confirmed by Sony. But Giant Bomb is usually pretty good about this stuff, and they seem very confident in their sources. I would say that this is pretty fairly accurate information. But until Sony confirms it and gives us some more hard information, or the thing's actually out, we really won't know exactly what it does. What I really want to talk about is the reception that this thing has. You can look at any article about the PlayStation Neo and go down to the comment section, and it's pretty divided. Some people don't think that this is really a big deal, or might even think that it's a good thing, but a lot of people think that this is a bad thing, and some are actually outraged over it. They're angry because they've already bought into the PS4. Some of these people, right when it first came out, gave Sony their money, made them successful, and now they're going to have to either buy another one or live with an underpowered version of the PS4 just a few years later. The people on the other side of the fence that think that it's really not that big a deal are saying that this is no different than any other technological upgrade. Like, pretty much everything we do, everything that we buy in technology gets upgraded on a very regular basis. Every console that we've had has had a redesign halfway through its life cycle. We upgrade our cell phones every year or two. PC parts are upgraded pretty rapidly, and this is no different. This is just the way technology is now, and people should get over it. I'd like to look into some of these claims and see if those are valid comparisons, to see if people really have a right to be upset about this, or if it's really not a big deal. So is this just like any other console redesign that we've seen in the past, like with the NES, the SNES, the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, the Sega Genesis? Is this the same thing as those? Well, if you look at all of these slim versions that we usually dub them, none of these redesigns actually make the console any more powerful. It doesn't really change the way that it plays the game in any way. Usually, they're actually just using cheaper parts or a cheaper design to sell you the console at a cheaper price, and they can make more of a profit by using these cheaper parts. So, but it never actually changes the way the game is played. Playing a video game on the super slim PS3 that came out like right before the PS4 did is no different than playing it on the original PlayStation 3. Of course, there's hard drive upgrades and variances, but the actual processing of the game, the gameplay, the resolution, everything about the game is the same. It's identical across all these. So I don't really think that's a fair comparison, because the Neo is going to improve on the gameplay experience. If you look at the Nintendo 64, however, they had an expansion pack, and some games were required. There was a Legend of Zelda game required, a Donkey Kong game required this expansion pack, and it actually was able to play the games. Basically, it processed them better. I'm not sure what the expansion pack actually was. I think it was RAM, but don't quote me on that. I don't know. I haven't done a lot of research. But it did upgrade the game experience and was required for some games. The difference between this and the Neo is this was a single component that needed to be upgraded. You didn't need to go buy a whole new console for a whole new price. You just had to buy this one little part, and I think it came with the games that needed it. At least I know Donkey Kong came with it. So usually it didn't end up costing too much once you got the game. So I think that this is a little bit of a different situation. You don't have to buy a whole new console. So I would say that this is also a whole different situation. If you look at the Nintendo 3DS, a year or two ago, they actually released an upgraded version of it called the new 3DS. And I'd say that this example more closely resembles the PlayStation Neo situation because it was just a regular 3DS with more power and was able to play games smoother and better. It even added an extra analog stick on the right side so you can get dual analog action, whereas you couldn't get that with the original 3DS. But with the new 3DS, there are some games that are exclusive to it, like Xenoblade Chronicles, that you have to have a new 3DS to play, or if you want to play the Super Nintendo Virtual Console. And some games like Hyrule Warriors that were designed with the new 3DS in mind just ran really poorly on the original 3DS. What could have been a game that worked well and was designed well for the original 3DS ended up being pretty much broken for people who chose not to upgrade. So is upgrading to PlayStation Neo the same thing as upgrading your cell phone? Well, besides the fact that phones are subsidized and you're not even paying full price if you're getting it with a contract, people know and expect that a new model of phone is coming. Nobody bought the iPhone 6 and then was shocked and caught off guard when the iPhone 6s came out. That's just the understanding we have with the market. We've been doing this for a decade or so. When people buy a phone, they do it with this in mind, with that understanding and that expectation. And personally for me, there's less of a drawback to having last year's model of phone. I Google things, I watch YouTube and Netflix, I check Facebook and Twitter, I use a few other apps, I text and email. I use my phone for a lot of stuff. Sometimes I even call people on my phone. Imagine that. And some light games. But there's nothing that I do on my phone that's enhanced really in any way on the next year's model. Maybe if you're playing graphically intensive games, then you might be able to see a difference then. But that's why I bought a dedicated game machine. Sure, I can watch YouTube and Netflix and do some of that other stuff on my console, but the primary function of my PlayStation 4 is to play games. So when the PlayStation Neo comes out and it plays games better, the primary function of my PS4 is what is potentially obsolete. All right, what about computer parts? Graphics cards are coming out on a regular basis. You can always upgrade your processor or your RAM, but that's like the cell phone situation. You know what you're getting into. You're making an informed decision when you buy a graphics card because you know right around the corner there's going to be a newer, better one that makes yours a little bit out of date. And honestly, isn't that kind of the point of PC gaming? You can customize your experience, and if you want the best experience, you can upgrade as the parts become available. Because when you join the PC Master Race, it's because you believe that the extra investment, the extra time, effort, and money is worth it to attain that PC level of quality. Whenever you buy a console, you're willing to sacrifice that PC quality for simplicity, a lower barrier of entry, and no continued financial obligation. Whenever you buy a PS4, you expect to have that standard quality of console gaming for the foreseeable future, for 5 to 7 years. And whenever you replace a single part on your computer, it's modular. It's like the N64 expansion pack. You don't have to replace your entire system. You're just replacing a single part. And granted, that single part oftentimes will cost more than a PS4, but that goes with that cost of PC gaming. And if you're willing to invest $2,000 in a gaming PC, then that extra part is a fraction of that. Whereas if you want to upgrade your PlayStation so that you can maintain that standard quality of console gaming, you have to spend 100% of the money that you were willing to invest in the first place. Alright guys, this video ended up going on a little bit longer than I intended, so I'm going to cut it off right here and make this part 1, where we discussed why I feel that comparing the PlayStation Neo to other forms of technological upgrades is not a good defense for having to replace your console 3 years into its life cycle. That being said, just because I think that the PlayStation Neo is a unique situation does not mean that I feel it's bad necessarily. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I guess you'll have to watch part 2 to find out. It should be uploaded in a day or so after this one. It's already been recorded. I just need to finish editing it and stuff. So if you like this video, give me a like. If you didn't like it, give me a dislike. It won't hurt my feelings. Please like it. Anyways, guys, if you have more you want to add to the conversation, let me know in the comments below. Let me know, do you feel that this is just the natural progression of technology and it makes sense and it's something we just need to get used to? Or do you think that Sony is screwing over their customers? And if you have a PlayStation 4, do you plan on upgrading to Neo? Alright, so that's it for this one. Make sure to subscribe so that you can be notified when part 2 is available and for all future content. And until the next time, may the fork be with you.